Hi friends, welcome. My name is Baron and this is my channel where I talk about book stuff. I'm the book Baron. Welcome. Today I wanted to have a little bit of a conversation because as someone who has gone through a pretty dramatic change in my reading genre, I have found myself having to defend the fact that romance has merit, which as romance readers, I think a lot of us are like, well, duh. But there is a lot of rhetoric out there that I see pretty frequently that seems to suggest that it's vapid, it's just for bored housewives, which is really demeaning to people with children, and that it really holds no value or meaning at best, and at worst, sometimes they even say it's harmful. So I just wanted to chat a little bit about some of the things that I find valuable within romance, and hopefully this helps start a conversation. Hopefully this helps you feel validated in your love of romance, because I just feel like there's so much rhetoric that is so anti-romance. Now, I say all this, I understand fully that romance is not criticism free. There is a clear lack of diversity that has been getting better, but we definitely tend to trend white hetero. I'll also say I'm not the foremost expert on this topic. I have no higher education in literature. I am simply a person who really enjoys romance and loves analyzing stuff to death. So that's what we're doing here. And hopefully you can feel free to chime in the comments. I'm sure there's going to be things that I miss. Maybe you have your own examples of how romance has been good for you. And these are in no particular order. There's no ranking or hierarchy. This is simply just my brain dump. Point number one, romance deals with actual issues in relationships. And on the flip side of that, can demonstrate healthy communication and techniques for dealing with issues. And this does not apply to just romantic relationships. This applies to even friendships. Seeing these issues play out on page for me has really helped remove myself from a particular situation I might find myself in and understand maybe where the other person is coming from, or understand the impact or how the miscommunication might have happened, or something that I'm doing in a relationship that I might think is benign or even helpful in how it's actually causing some problems, and how to address that without having to necessarily go through a big dramatic breakup or some big conflict of, oh, I see that that is not a helpful behavior, or that's not a helpful way of communicating, or I could be doing this in a better way. And I can just bring that to the relationship without having it be a massive blow up issue. Prime example, I was just reading a book somewhat recently. The character kind of constantly felt like she had to be fine. And for the partner, that was interpreted as not being engaged or being dismissive of the issues that were going on. And I'm like, oh, damn, I totally do that. I totally do that. I talked to my husband about it afterwards. And I think sometimes it's just beneficial to see a conflict play out and have yourself removed from the situation, but be able to identify what role you might be playing in that particular issue. All right, reason number two that I find romance valuable: empathy. I think that's a huge thing. You are spending so much time in someone's head as a romance reader that it really helps you to understand other people's behaviors, responses, choices that may run contrary to your own. And you know, that doesn't have to mean that it plays out in terms of your relationship, even just like talking with colleagues or running into someone that was maybe rude at the store, of understanding, you know what, there's other stuff going on. There was a character that I just read that was so rude, but you know what, she was going through something really traumatic and trying to heal from that experience. And I think that it can be a good way to understand where other people are coming from without having to actually experience something ourselves. On the flip side of that, validation. Sometimes it's nice to just see yourself on page. It can be really cathartic so that you don't feel alone. Because I think that most people in some ways probably feel that they don't fit the mold. Seeing that other people who act and respond in ways that are similar to you can be really validating. Another big thing is exploration. Exploring dating and sexuality and different types of partners with minimal to no risk. You can close a book at any time. You're at home on your couch with a glass of wine and you can close that book if it no longer feels good for you. You don't have to worry about emotional impacts that it might have on another person, or maybe even feeling unsafe to explore. And I think too, it can also help provide a language, because everything's written down, right? It can help provide you with a language to talk about the things that you do and don't want. All right, next up, another thing that I really love about romance is that it is female focused. think a lot of times in society, there is a lot of messaging around relationships and sexuality that is very male focused. A lot of the messaging towards women is that you're inherently dirty for having any sort of desires, your body is in some way shameful and should be covered, and women are really objects for consumption by male partners, especially as someone who came from a very intense purity culture background. Even though I think a lot of us really might challenge or not want to internalize that messaging, we're bombarded with it. And the thing that I love about romance, it's about women's sensuality and sexuality, and it doesn't demonize it. It's celebrated, in fact. It's oftentimes the forefront of the entire book. Obviously, the way I'm talking about this is pretty heteronormative, so I'll call that out. And lastly, romance is fun, y'all. There's nothing wrong with reading a book simply for the pleasure of it. There doesn't always have to be a greater meaning to everything. I think that kind of gets drilled into us in high school where we're constantly analyzing things. And don't get me wrong, I love doing that, but sometimes you just need an escape. Sometimes you just need to get off the treadmill of constant self-improvement, caring about horrible things that happened in the world. That's totally valid. There doesn't need to be anything more to it. Sometimes you just need an escape into a different world where you know what the outcome is. There's a happily ever after, or maybe their problems are just entirely different than your own. And also, let's be honest, the early stages of falling in love are really exciting. And I say that as someone who has been in a relationship for over a decade. Sometimes it's just fun to relive the excitement of those initial stages of a relationship, and you have the benefit of knowing that that relationship works out. So with that, those are some of the reasons that I really love romance and find a lot of value in it. I would love to hear from you. Is there anything you think I left out? Do you agree with any of what I said? Do you disagree with anything? I'd love to just chat with you guys in the comments about this because it's something that I'm very passionate about. Romance has value. And with that, don't forget to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want more content from me, and I hope that I see you in my next video. Bye-bye!